Hi folks, and welcome to week 9 of our class. So this week we are going to be talking about your posters, which is one of your final projects for the class. It's going to be due on November 19th, so you have quite a bit of time still, more than 2.5 weeks, to get the poster done, but I wanted to go over the expectations for it and talk to you a little bit about what the assignment is going to look like. So, for this week for class, all you really need to do is start brainstorming your poster. And you should do those in your working groups, right? In those on the discussion board where you have your smaller groups of 4 or 5 people, where you can start thinking about some of the ideas that you have for your poster and what you want it to look like. So I'm going to quickly go through a little presentation that I've made previously for another class about how to make an academic poster. And then you will be able to take a look at that and download the template and start working in your own poster. So this is a little bit specific to scientific posters. I made this when I was working for a class that was a biology class, but it's still very useful. So you can just pretend the word social scientific is here. Okay, so the poster is a visual means of communicating research, right? And so you want it to do a good job of summarizing and highlighting some of the key things that you've found. So now yours are not a research project. Yours are more telling a story about some data and literature that you've read. So it's way less than a paper. It's also structured differently than a PowerPoint, right? It's really not, shouldn't be following the rules of either of those. So you want your posters to be organized. These are some of the standard headings. I'll go ahead and open right now a great example of a poster from last year that somebody made. Okay, so as you can see, some of their headings was introduction, and then they got real specific. So they were looking at parks in New York City. And so they put their park space by borough here. And then they did a little bit of literature and statistical review, right? They didn't do their own statistics. This is just stuff that they found in the literature that they read. What's important for the park. You don't need to worry about methodology. And then we have your conclusions here, right? What are some of the either conclusions you've come up with or recommendations that you have for the issue that you've brought up, and then your references, and then your contact information at the bottom. So you want to make sure that you don't include too much text in your poster, right? So things should be bullet points, not so much full paragraphs. It's okay to have your paragraph, your introduction as a paragraph, but you can see she made the rest bullet points or numbered, right? So that it's a little bit visually easier. In addition to having the 3 columns with sort of the different headings, we want to make sure the template we're using has a 3-column landscape, and I think that's really like kind of the most efficient use of space. Then you want to move on to, after you've kind of written out your abstract and your recommendations or conclusions, right? You want to add some aesthetics, right? And you want them to be useful, like, right? Cartoons, not so much, right? If we take a look back at some of the examples, here, right, she's got some great charts, some graphs that are telling us things about her topic, right? Not just kind of like pictures for picture's sake. Try to keep it at an 18-point minimum for the font. Otherwise, it's going to be too small, especially when people are further away. And you want to make maybe a catchy title, okay? Don't use more than 2 different kinds of fonts, right? So you'll see this is pretty much all just maybe like 1 or 2 different kinds of fonts. So it looks pretty clear. So this, right, not such a great graph, not sure exactly what it's telling us. This one has a lot of information, right? It gives us a title. It tells us how it's broken down. It gives us a little guide here to show how this renewable energy gets broken down. It's all labeled with percentages, right? And I'll talk more about how to make a chart in a minute. If you found some great data visualizations online, some infographics while you were making your own, if you saw something that you want to add, that's great. You could even add parts of your own infographic if you wanted to. I'm not super strict about colors, right? You're not being graded like totally aesthetically here, but make sure you stick to like 1 or 2 color schemes, and I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. Okay, so here are some examples of posters. Do you think this is a good poster or a bad poster? Okay, so it's definitely a bad poster, right? So there's, first of all, this background has way too much going on, okay? There's a lot of text. It's not presented in a way that makes sense, right? It goes from the abstract to the introduction. The conclusions are here, but the results are there and the methods are there, right? It just doesn't make sense. This image of a little hamster maybe on a scale, while it's adorable, doesn't really tell us anything about the topic itself, okay? This is an excellent example, okay? Still a little bit too much text, but if you were up close to it, you would be able to see this more clearly. It's got some visuals that give us a good idea of what was being conducted in this study. It flows naturally from the introduction to the abstract to the results to the discussion. Here's another good one, flowing from the introduction to the methodology. Okay, these are great as well. Lots of visuals on them, and that's fine. This one is probably the best example. Okay, so it flows from background to questions and methods. Then they present you with the results, some graphs of the results, some images that are important in the context of what they're discussing, and then the conclusion. Okay, and then this is another example of kind of a bad one, right? We don't want a distracting background there, okay? So you're going to be making your presentation in PowerPoint. So what I have for you here in this week's folder is first the template. So you can download that, and you'll need to be working in PowerPoint to use it. Here's the example that we just looked at. There's also more tips available from Mercy's library online, so you can click there for that. Okay, so wanted to make it bigger. So this has some examples or some instructions on how to best go about designing this, right? So I would say, first of all, you can kind of look at the different colored themes that you can choose from. And they've got some that are like already pre-done, right? So you don't kind of have to guess about which colors are going to look best. PowerPoint, Microsoft has already done that for you. So you can click through those. You can change the background a bit if you wanted to. So we'll go back to more or less what was there at the beginning. Okay, and then you have these different boxes, right? So here's your introduction. You're going to want to, well, first you start up here, add your title, your name. You can write Mercy College. It's already written here as well. Make sure you're going to delete whatever is in these boxes. So you can write introduction. Make sure you drag it down so that it's not like it is here, where that word introduction is kind of like above the line. Make sure that we can read it all easily. You'd write your introduction here, and then maybe you'd add a chart down here. Okay, so you would maybe tell us what the title of the chart is, fill it in there. Here you'd put the main points from the literature that you've read. Right at this point, you've done your annotated bibliography. You're pretty well versed in the literature in your topic. So what are the main points or concerns? Maybe if you have some other additional images, or if you wanted to grab something from your infographic. Some of your conclusions or your recommendations, right? Like you've read a lot about this, so what are some of the problems, and then what are some of the maybe solutions to those problems? You'll include your references here. Those can be very small. You can make those like a 10-point font or something. And then your contact information, right? So your name and your email address. Okay, so that should be pretty straightforward here. Like I said, you can play around with the colors and the fonts if you'd like to. This really goes through how to add in a graphic, which will be pretty similar how you would do it in Word, but you go to Insert and then Photo, and then you can, if you've downloaded the photo or the picture or the graph that you want to add, then you just re-upload it from there. So picture from File, and then that'll open up your Finder so that you can grab a photo that you've already gotten, uploaded, and insert it into the PowerPoint. Okay, so that should be pretty straightforward. Like I said, you're not completing your poster this week. It's due November 19th. You're just starting to think about how you're going to have that layout looking. And you can access Canva if you wanted to make a chart. You could also use, if you wanted to find a photograph representing your topic, here are some usually free photo archives that you can have access to. Okay, so while we're waiting for Canva to load, so the next part of this, right, like you'll start this week, and then you'll also need to come up with a 2-minute little pitch, right, like an elevator speech about your poster. So the point of a poster presentation, you normally see these at like academic conferences. You'll see a whole room full of people with their posters, and they'll be standing there ready to just field any questions as people are walking around. It's usually like in between panels at a conference. People go and get coffee, take a little break, and they mill about in these conference rooms, right? So you would have folks standing there, usually undergraduates like yourselves, with their posters, and someone would come up to them and you would say, "Hi, my name is so-and-so, I'm from Mercy College, and this is my poster about whatever your topic is," right? And then you would go into a really quick synopsis summary of your of the poster that you're showing the person. And then they would ask you questions afterwards about it. That should only be 2 minutes. So later in the semester, around the week before the 19th, I'll post another video sort of explaining to you how to go about writing your 2-minute elevator speech. And you'll be able to post your poster as well as your speech online so that we can all view each other's. Now, also, if you'll recall, early in the semester when I spoke with you on the phone, I told you that you could also come to the poster presentation in the Bronx campus for extra credit, right? So we're going to actually be having one of these poster sessions. So if you would like to do that, you just need to let me know by the end of November, because I need to get your poster printed, right? So all of these are just going to be created in PowerPoint, and then you'll upload them to Blackboard like everything else this semester. But if you wanted to actually come participate in the poster session, then I need to print your poster. So I need to know by the end of November if you wanted to come on Thursday, December 12th at the Bronx campus. We'll get started around 3 p.m. and you'll be able to stand there with your poster for half an hour or an hour, however long you feel like coming, and discuss your poster with faculty and your colleagues at Mercy. So that's the gist of why posters exist and why you have to prepare a 2-minute speech for them, right? Because this is kind of like if you went to an academic conference, this is what you would be doing. And if you'd like the extra credit or just the practice, even if you don't need extra credit, it's good practice to do something like this. It makes you feel more comfortable than when you have to go do it for a conference or something. So if you wanted to create a chart, we can just say we're creating a poster, it doesn't matter. So you click on Elements and then Charts. So there's lots of charts in here. Most of these are free. There's many choices for free ones. Most of you will use something like a pie chart, a line chart, or a bar chart. So let's add one of these in here. Now, once you add it, it opens up this little thing here, which allows you to change the percentages and also the labels, right? So let's say you were doing a report on the percentage of people living in a certain area, right? And you wanted to know what are their different occupations, okay? So let's say some people work in the service industry, and let's say that's 30% of people in the group. And then maybe there's also people who work in a professional capacity, right? Doctors, nurses, lawyers, and maybe that's 45%. So that's 75% altogether. Let's say we want to have one more that's going to be 25%, and we want that to be, let's say, people that are unemployed. This is obviously very basic. 25% unemployment rate is extremely high, but the point is just to show you how you can do this in Canva. So you delete the values and spaces that you don't need. And now you see it's updated to include the 3 categories that we made. It's labeled and it has the percentages. Okay, so now you can also add some text above it, or you can just screenshot it as it is. So what I would do for this, you can download it as well, but I screenshot it, which is on an Apple, Command-Shift-4, on a PC. You could Google it if you don't know it for sure. But you could go ahead there, grab that image, open it back up in your template, and then we're going to insert a photo, picture from a file. It's the screenshot that we just did. Okay, and you'll be able to just pop it right there. Okay, and when you're done with this and it tells you exactly how to save it, when you save it, these ugly black lines will disappear, I promise you. So that when you upload it to me, I won't see those. Okay, so for this week, just start thinking about, you can start working on your poster as well, but start thinking about what are the different aspects you want to include in your poster, what are sort of those bullet points going to be, and then head over to the discussion board so that you can sort of talk it out with your group members. If you have any questions on this stuff, as always, just send me an email, and next week I'll talk a little bit more about the elevator pitches that you need to make, and we'll also get started on statistics next week. Have a great week.